There has been a steady flow of technological innovation and major engineering feats in China.
China's experiencing a boom in innovation from artificial intelligence to smartphones and beyond. I'm Nathan King in for Anna Naidu, and this is The Heat. Hello again. Once the world's manufacturing giant, China is now poised to take the lead in innovation. In 2017, 15 Chinese companies reached a $1 billion valuation, what's called unicorn status, giving China 30% of last year's new unicorn companies. From taking the lead in space technology to solid growth in booming smartphone sectors, what's next for China as it innovates its way towards the future? Well, joining me now is Xiaochen Zhang. He is president of FinTech for Good. From Shanghai, via Skype, is David Li. He's executive director of the Shenzhen Open Innovation Lab. From San Francisco, we have Rui Ma. She's an entrepreneur and contributor to pandaily.com. And in the center of Silicon Valley, Palo Alto, we have Cyriac Roeding. He is a Silicon Valley-based entrepreneur and venture capitalist. Thanks so much for joining us. Ray, I'm going to start with you. You know, it used to be that China was seen as the copycat of the West, fairly or unfairly, when it came to hardware, software, and innovation. That's been changing for several years now, but it seems like the West is just waking up. What's going on?
Yeah, so a number of factors are happening. I was very lucky to be there from 2007 to 2015 full-time on the ground, where I saw a lot of the changes. But if I had to break it down, I would say, you know, mainly four factors. Number one, you have a lot of talent in China. So the diaspora from the US going back to China to start a lot of companies. And then you have a lot of capital. So a lot of capital has poured into specifically technology investing. And that has been bolstered by a lot of support from the government. So when I was in China and doing investment, basically you could see the government actively not hindering, but helping the technology enterprises. And finally, you have the fact that, you know, there's a huge market in China. So there's a lot of room for innovation and there's a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurs to succeed. So I would break it down to those four. Well, let's go to Shanghai. David, is that right? Is the government support and the capital key here? Because it's sort of the opposite of Silicon Valley, which has sort of let 100 flowers bloom. Sorry to borrow a phrase from Chairman Mao, but that seems to be a very different approach.
Well, I think that's one part of the visible side of the China's innovations. Right now, they have unicorn rival the Silicon Valley, but the more important part to look at is this open type of innovation system characterized mostly in Shenzhen. Yeah. This is not just unicorn. This is the thousand flower blooms in terms of take mobile phone as example. Now it's not just one big brand. It's thousands of small companies. It's easy to look at what's similar to the Silicon Valley with the unicorn, with the big VC deals. But it's more important to look at who are innovating, who are leveraging the China's ecosystem. Let it be small company, let it be very international startup. For example, in the past years, we have worked a lot with innovators coming out of Africa, coming and leveraging the Shenzhen ecosystems to realize their projects and to realize their products. And I think that's one part of the narrative, looking at the innovation out of China. Very visible side on this money, this venture capital investment, but more broadly, there's a huge breadth of the innovations which is floating through China right now.
Okay, we talked about the capital, we talked about the talent. Xiaochen, you know, you're at the financial end. When people try and invest, is the marketplace an open way to invest? Are you seeing a lot of international interest, or are the barriers that some companies have complained about still a problem?
And in general, in these years, that we see the emerging positive change in both from the regulative changes and also from the market behavior change. And for example, from 2013, Premier Li Keqiang have already just made several announcements to try to call for support for the development of internet finance, and also internet finance was being just taking on by many, investors in the market and also in the 5-year plan, and that create the positive type of policy environment. Then from the market side, that this kind of policy policy signal was very well understood, and the investors really jump into that. And now we can see that from currently, as what you mentioned, the number that China really have like 30%, 1/3 of the unicorn company, and the market size of fintech, for example, amount to more than $16 trillion a year. Wow. And for those biggest, the top 3 fintech company in China, their volume is really more than 10-fold of that size of other countries.
Everyone can recognize the new innovation. I spent several months in China looking at it, bowled me away. Cyriac, the thing is that are these unicorns that we're seeing in China going to be the new global tech companies? Because there are some headwinds here, aren't they?
Absolutely. It is not an easy thing to just take it from one country to another. The Chinese companies have a massive advantage of having a market that is very large, 1.4 billion people, 700 million of them carry a smartphone today. Compare that to the United States, which is 250 million, so it's almost 3 times more mobile phone users from the get-go. So that makes this market so attractive to stay there and build your company, especially as an entrepreneur. Imagine if you started a company tomorrow. Yeah. The competition in China is tremendous. People are working very, very hard. They will probably work harder than in Silicon Valley. There's a lot of debate about that. I'm sure we're going to talk about that. And therefore, internationalization requires yet another level of energy to say, okay, I am tackling the Chinese market, but now I'm also going to Western Europe or to the United States. That requires yet another layer of energy. And oftentimes, the Chinese startups are getting so big, so fast in China, that they end up not going international. There is relatively few examples. There is Musical.ly, for example, which was kind of Beijing-born, but then went international very, very quickly, and in fact is mainly in the United States. But that's the exception. So there is a lot there still to be seen. But on the innovation side, it used to be the argument that China is mainly about cloning and not about innovation. That argument is outdated. I spent time in China myself. I went there and looked at the Chinese startups and spent time with companies from $20 billion valuations like Meituan all the way to pre-idea stage. And what I found was an incredible hunger to move and to succeed. And when there are not enough ideas to clone anymore, the next pragmatic thing, and Chinese entrepreneurs are very pragmatic, is to innovate, and that's precisely what's happening now.
Excellent analysis. I spent some time in China at the end of last year and the beginning of this year doing exactly what you did, looking under the hood at innovation. I spent a time at Tencent, the home of WeChat, probably the most dominant app in China, yet still not used that much here. And I just want to show you an example of how they innovate locally for the market. We all know it's Chinese New Year, Lunar New Year, and they really pioneered the sort of digital giving through the red envelope tradition. Let's just have a look, and I want to pick up on that.
It's the traditional red envelope. Chinese Lunar New Year, grandkids and kids all over China want to get one of these because it's got money in it. It's a tradition that goes back thousands of years, but we're updating it for the 21st century. This is Grace from WeChat Pay. What do you do that's different?
Okay, it's different because we send a red envelope by WeChat now. I collect it.
So this is all electronic?
Yeah. Or
envelope?
Yeah. Then I send money just like 5.
Right.
I also can insert some wish words.
like a greeting.
Yeah, like 恭喜发财.
Or
Okay.
love grandma.
Yeah.
Or I love you.
Yeah, like that.